Respected dignitaries, invited guests, teachers, research scholars, and colleagues, good morning to all. We are about to begin the first session of Invited Talks. We have with us Professor Dr. Biswa Nath Datha, a distinguished research professor at Northern Illinois University, for delivering the session on machine learning, statistical regression, and numerical optimization. The chair for the session is Dr. Sudha Balagopalan, Dean Academics with the Academy of Science and Technology. We request Dr. Sudha Balagopalan to introduce the distinguished speaker.
Thank you, Divya. A very good morning to everyone here. Okay, so this is the start of our first session in the international conference on discrete and applied mathematics, and it's a great pleasure to be here and to open out a few comments. First and foremost, it's a pleasure to see Professor Datta after a long time here, and when you see people like him across the table, somewhat like across the table on the screen, it feels that there's a possibility to reach out. And this is what I'm seeing here. And similarly, I see my professor also here. That is, Nambia sir is also logged in. It's a pleasure to see him there. But at the same time, I cannot reach out. I cannot see him. But at the same time, let me hope that my voice reaches him also, as all the people here. So I borrow the sentiments of the entire organizing committee and bid high words of welcome to each one of you here. And now going into my duty, it would be grandstanding on my part to say that I'm chairing this session on especially mathematics, for which I have a huge amount of respect. And then again, a session by Professor Datta, whom again I hold with a lot of respect and honor. At the same time, it is giving me a chance to reach out, to listen to him, as also to perhaps initiate a discussion on a subject of much relevance to engineering. So in this context, as also knowing that mathematics will always remain my favorite subject, though I am an engineer, I will go on to my duty of introducing a great personality like him with as few words as is possible. Professor Biswa Nath Datha is a distinguished research professor at Northern Illinois University. He is a professor in the Mathematical Sciences Department and an adjunct professor in the Electrical and Mechanical Engineering Department at NIU. He has served as the director of the Applications Involvement Component of the doctoral program at NIU. He developed the current computational mathematics program and took a major active role in the development of the Mathematical Sciences PhD program at NIU. Professor Datta also held visiting professorship at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Pennsylvania State University, Southern Illinois University, University of California at San Diego, State University of Campinas, Brazil, University of Adelaide, Australia, several universities in China, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, India, as well as many other universities, research organizations, and industries around the world, including the Boeing Company and Wolfram Research Incorporation. His research interests are interdisciplinary that blend numerical linear algebra and scientific computing, including large-scale and high-performance computing with control and vibration engineering. His interdisciplinary research has produced computationally viable algorithms and high-quality engineering and scientific software packages that previously did not exist for scientific computing and electrical and vibration control systems design and analysis. He also pioneered the research on large scale and parallel computations in control. His current research involves development of computationally viable and mathematically sound algorithms for active vibrations control and model updating of large vibrations systems modeled by finite element techniques. The thrust of his research are in its applications to real-life problems arising in vibration industries, including automobiles, buildings, bridges, highways, air and space crafts, and in mathematical justification of many ad hoc industrial techniques which lack solid mathematical foundations. Professor Datta has authored more than 150 research papers, 2 books, Numerical Methods for Linear Control Systems, Design and Analysis, and Numerical Linear Algebra and Applications, and several software packages, including MATLAB-based toolboxes, MathControl, MathCom, and Mathematica-based advanced numerical methods. These packages are routinely used for classroom instructions and academic and industrial research and developments. Professor Datta's research has been supported by NSF, the Air Force Office of Scientific Research, US Department of Education, the Office of Naval Research, Japan, the Boeing Company, Wolfram Research Incorporation, and numerous overseas funding agencies. In recognition of his research contributions, he has received several prestigious honors and awards. These included election to IEEE Fellow in 2000, induction as an academician of the Academy of Nonlinear Sciences, Russia in 2002, Senior Fulbright Specialist Award in 2006 and 2009, and several IEEE plaques and medals of honor. He is an IEEE distinguished lecturer and also has been honored by several IEEE sponsored conferences. Professor Datta was honored in an IEEE's honoring ceremony held during the banquet of the International Workshop on Numerical Linear Algebra in Signals, Systems and Control at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur in India, 2007, and was awarded a Medal of Honor at a special honoring ceremony held at the first International Conference on Power, Control and Signals, Epsicon 10, by Vidya Academy of Science and Technology, Thrissur, India. Multiple research publications honoring Datta, Professor Datta, and in recognition of his research has appeared recently, the research monograph on numerical linear algebra in signals, systems and control. Springer 2010, a special issue of linear algebra and its applications 2011, and a special issue of numerical linear algebra with applications on inverse problems in science and industry. 2 most recent awards of distinction are the 2015 Fulbright Nehru Distinguished Chair Professor offered by United States State Department, and 2017 P.C. Ray Distinguished Chair Professorship bestowed by Indian National Science Academy. An honoring ceremony on this occasion was again held at the Academy of Science and Technology, Thrissur, India in 2017. Professor Datta has served on the editorial board of premier mathematics journals in his areas of expertise, such as SIAM, J, matrix analysis and applications, and linear algebra and its applications as a special editor, and numerical linear algebra with applications, mechanical systems and signal processing, and dynamical systems. He was the vice chair of the SIAM Linear Algebra Activity Group and has organized several successful interdisciplinary conferences sponsored by the American Mathematical Society and SIAM, and MTNS, that is Mathematical Theory of Networks and Systems, IEEE. He also co-edited several proceedings books of these conferences. Much more about this. Of course, I was reading so much, but beyond this, he has been a big friend of Vidya, and he continues to remain a loyal friend of Vidya, and we are very, very happy, as also proud and privileged to have him as our first speaker, as our first keynote speaker in the international conference ICDAM 2020. Welcome you, sir. Welcome you aboard. Thank you, sir.
Sir, we are unable to hear you. Can you please unmute your audio?
Do you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Sudha, for your very elaborative introductions about me. But I can introduce myself in one single sentence. That is, I am an Indian-American mathematician. Indian first and then American. And I take great pride in the rich heritage of mathematics of India. And I never fail to acknowledge this thing, these contributions of Indian mathematics to any world conference I have ever attended or given a talk. Anyway, I am very, very happy to be a part of this conference. Now, since I am the first speaker of the conference, I have a humble request to make. May I request you to observe a moment of silence in the very sad memory of thousands of hundreds of lives that have been lost during this cruel coronavirus all over the world. Many of the victims are from the academia, faculty, staff, students from across the world, including India and many other countries abroad. May I now ask you to do that for a single moment of silence? Let's start.
Of course, sir.
Thank you. Okay, now coming to my talk. First of all, I'd like to express my sincere and heartfelt thanks to the organizing committee to invite me to this conference. Though I decided to give a talk on a topic which may not be very relevant to the main theme of this conference. However, this is a topic which is a sort of state-of-the-art thing, and I decided to share some of my humble knowledge that I've recently acquired on this topic with the people of Vidya and other participants from across this country and abroad. Of course, one of the reasons I immediately accepted the invitation is that I never wanted to miss any opportunity to be a part of an event organized by Vidya Academy of Sciences and Engineering, an institute which I love most from the core of my heart. Thank you. Thank you for your kindness. Now, about the topic of my talk, which is not in the area of my main expertise, as you know, from Dr. Sudha's presentations, but this is an interdisciplinary talk, blending machine learning, which is an area of computer science, statistical regression is an area of statistics, and optimization is a subject by itself now because of its tremendous importance in all areas of applications in science and engineering. And I consider myself to be qualified to talk about this topic. You know the reason? Who gives an interdisciplinary talk of this type? A person who doesn't have in-depth expertise in any of the topics he's talking about. And this is, you may be laughing, but this is really true in this case, because I am just a learner of machine learning, topic of machine learning, and that too, a beginning learner. But I decided to share my humble knowledge with you today. So that is the talk all about. Okay, so let's talk. Now, do I share the slides from my side, or you will do that from your side?
No, sir, it has been conveyed that you will be presenting, sir.
I'll be presenting from my side. Now, can you see the slides now?
No, sir, not yet, sir.
No, because I didn't have an opportunity to share the screen. So for that, I think I need a code to share the screen. And I don't have the code. Let me see, can I share the screen or not? Can I share this? Do you see that? No. Okay, so it's better that you do the presentation from your side. I'll just talk. Can you do that?
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We shall do.
Who is Sumit Bisht? Who is Sumit Bisht?
Has to
Yes.
stop
You display the slides and I'll be talking and I'll be asking you to skip some of the slides as needed, okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sumit
I'm
Bisht,
sorry about that, it didn't work.
the participant, Mr. Sumit Bisht, you are requested to stop your presentation.
He requested to stop my presentation.
No, not
No,
you,
no.
sir.
Not
No, sir.
Not
A
you.
participant was presenting his screen by mistake, sir.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, you go ahead and present my slides
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
on your side.
Yes, sir.
Okay, here you go. Now you can see it, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Now, what is machine learning? Please stay now on this slide. What is machine learning? Machine learning is the learning of the machine. Machine means computer. To perform. What happened? I cannot see it any longer. It's gone. Okay. It's back now again. Sorry about that. So machine learning is the learning of the machine, means computer, to perform a certain task defined by human. The Wikipedia description of machine learning is the following. Machine learning is the scientific study of algorithms and statistical methods that computer systems use to perform a specific task without using explicit instructions, relying on patterns and interference instead. Now, what is the difference between the machine learning and traditional computing? In traditional computing, you give a set of specific instructions in the form of computer programs to the computer. Computer performs those instructions and gives the result. Here, no computer brain is involved. It just acts according to your instructions. On the other hand, in machine learning, no explicit instructions is given to the machine. Only some set of data and some patterns and interfaces. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, how the machine learning is related to the well-known area called artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, the ability of a computer program to function like human being. And machine learning, the ability of the computer to learn from the human being. So you can see machine learning can be thought as an application of AI, artificial intelligence. In fact, you can call it a younger brother. But this younger brother has recently got very strong and is getting stronger every day. In the sense that machine learning is now the current state of the art. Some of the exciting things are happening today in the area of machine learning. And I will share with you some of those exciting developments on machine learning. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, what is the association of data science with machine learning? Now, as you know, the data science is becoming a buzzword nowadays in industrial and business world. In most of the well-known companies and even the lesser-known companies, well-known companies such as the IBM, Google, Facebook, you just name any companies, they routinely employ data scientists to perform certain tasks. What tasks did they perform? Well, company gives a huge amount of data and define a task. The job of a data scientist is to analyze the data to make some predictions. Now, how this is done? This analysis is done by means of machine learning. But unfortunately, most of the data scientists, whom I call data analysts, not scientists, are not aware what is the mathematics involved behind the machine learning. All they do, they use some machine learning based computer software libraries to make the decision without knowing what is actually happening behind those libraries. But what I want to do today, I want to share with you some of the mathematics behind the machine learning. Okay, I don't know, but next slide, please. This is not the slide I wanted. Okay. Okay, machine learning is done, is achieved by means of, by using certain sequential steps. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to illustrate, I'm going to talk about these steps very briefly, one by one, with an example I call a toy example. It's the example of predicting the stock price of a new company that is coming into the market. Okay. So the first step is the first step number one is the problem definition. You need to define the problem that you like the machine to solve in an unambiguous way. That is very important. The next step is data collection. Well, how will the machine work without some relevant data? So you need to give some relevant, you need to collect some relevant data which is relevant to the tasks given to the computer, and those data sets have to be given to the computer. And of course, as you can see, the bigger the set is, the more helpful it is to the computer to make prediction out of this data. So it's all about data. That's why sometimes we call machine learning nothing but a learning from the data. And nowadays, as I said, there is no want of data. There are millions and millions of data for any problem you are talking about in this world, in this computer world. Anyway, the data can be thought of being divided into two sets. One is called the training set. Training set is the set of data that is used to train the computer. Another is called the test set. Test set is the set of data which will be used to test the efficacy of the trained model after the training is completed. Now, the training set, according to the data in the training set, the learning can be two different types. The first is when the training set contains both input and output data. In this case, the training is called supervised learning. Learning is called the supervised learning. If the training set contains only the output data, only the input data, no output data, then it's called unsupervised learning. Next slide, please. Okay, so for our example, the predicting the share price of a new company which is coming to the market. So what will be the relevant data? Data will be, of course, the share prices of several well-known companies, possibly in the same group. For example, if the new company is a software company, we should collect the stock prices of some of the well-known software companies like IBM, Microsoft, and other companies like Indian companies, TCS, Wipro, Infosys, etc. And give those data, the stock prices of those companies to the computer. So those are the relevant data. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, the next step number 3, is on features design. Now, as I said, that could be huge number of data presented to the computer, but the computer has to be trained to find out which set of data have the distinguished features which are relevant to the prediction that computer is going to make from the data. And this is very important, to design the features in the data which will be helpful to make the prediction. Ideally, computers should do it by itself. Okay, or you have to train the computer to do this feature. And this is the most difficult but very important task. For example, suppose you are asking the computer to distinguish a cat from a dog. Now, if you tell the computers that here the relevant features are the 2 ears or 4 legs, they are not good features, because both the animals have the same features. But on the other hand, if you tell the computer the size of the nose or facial impression, then it will be helpful. Like the dogs have, the cats have the big ears and a small nose, and conversely for the dogs. So these are the features I'm talking about. Okay, so this is a very important step which is called features design. Okay, next one. Next slide, please. Step number 4. Well, that's where the mathematics is coming. So the computer needs to develop a mathematical model based on which the prediction has to be made. Well, there are 2 popular techniques for this purpose. One is called a regression. It's a statistical technique to develop a mathematical relationship between the input data and output data. So this is the supervised learning. Okay. And another is called classification. It's very, very similar to the regression, but here the technique is to find some classes, either 2 or more than 2 classes, to separate the training set into 2 or more classes, so that those classes can be used to make the prediction. Like if the problem is to distinguish between a cat and a dog, the training set will be divided into 2 classes, 2 separate classes, according to distinguished features. So when a new animal comes, you'll be able to identify the animal just by putting in one of those 2 classes. So that technique is called classifications. Let me give you some examples, some well-known examples of these 2 techniques. I'll mostly talk about regressions and some classification techniques. Next slide, please. Okay. The regression is routinely used nowadays, as I said, to forecast the stock prices. I mean, the share price, I mean, not stock, share price of a company. And also to forecast the box office sales of a movie, for example, new movie. What happens nowadays, before the movie is released for public view, the company releases some trailer of the movies, a partial overview. And then you can see immediately there will be a lot of discussions in the social media, like in the Facebook, Twitter. And so they call it sentiment analysis. So and by analyzing those sentiments, the company can decide whether the movie will hit the market, whether it will be a blockbuster movie or it will be a failure. Also, the regression technique is routinely used to predict diseases like blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, etc. Next slide, please. Now, how is it done? Well, so as I said that, as is well known now, that scientists now very strongly believe that causes of many common diseases like cancer, diabetes, heart disease are human genes. So the regression is commonly used to understand the complex relationship between the genetic features and the quantitative traits like the levels of cholesterol, glucose, etc. to identify certain disease. Of course, goal of all these things is to discover some gene-targeted therapies for such diseases. Next slide, please. Now we are going back. Next, please go forward. Next slide, please. Okay, now let's talk about classification techniques, where the output is discrete. Well, one of the most important is the object recognition, like the distinguish a cat from a dog, but this is, object recognition. Speech recognition. So here the problem is to classify the input data into 2 or more separate classes to recognize certain speech from many speeches. And most importantly, the classification has become a diagnostic tool in medicine nowadays. Next slide, please. Well, what do you mean by diagnostic tools? Like, as I said, that several types of cancer, such as the breast cancers, has been positively identified to human genes. So classification techniques can be used to identify if a patient is predisposed of developing that cancer. For example, if a mother has the breast cancer, her daughter is naturally worried if she would develop the same cancer because of the gene. And the machine learning can predict that using classification techniques. How is it done? There is a technique called DNA microarray technology. And using the technologies, the healthy genes are separated from the cancerous genes. And so into classes. So using that classification techniques, the scientists can predict whether a patient is predisposed of developing the cancer or not. Next slide, please.
So sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
So we have 10 more minutes to go. Just to remind you, we have 10 more minutes to go.
Okay, I have a lot to talk.
Oh, okay. Sorry, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
So another thing is another diagnostic tools. Another sort of diagnosis that is done by using classification techniques is the identifying the neurological disorder like the autism, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, etc., by using the classification techniques from the MRI scan. Okay, next slide, please. I don't have much time. Okay, let me talk a little bit about, okay, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I don't have time to do all those things. Okay, next slide. There are, you can look into the, in the slides. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about regression, a technique that that is used to in machine learning. We have seen some of the applications. So regression is a technique, as I said, to develop mathematical model relating input data with the output data. So here is the mathematical definition. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, here is some mathematical data. Suppose, okay, this is how a multi-dimensional linear regression is defined. Suppose you are given a sort of a k vector valued input, d1 through dk, and a scalar valued output y. So the problem is how to relate y to these. Next slide, please. So what you want to do, you want to establish a relationship in such a way that the yi's will be tied with the di's by means of some parameters called the regression parameters. So the problem is to find those parameters x0, x1, x2, xk, those are vectors, are such that this relation will be satisfied. Next slide, please. Okay, in terms of matrices and vectors, this is nothing but a relationship of the form y equal to dx plus c, where d the data matrix, y the output vector, and e is the error vector of errors. Next slide, please. Okay, once this mathematical model is established, the next step for the computer is to tune the parameters of the model, regression or classification, in such a way that the parameters will be as good as possible. Next slide, please. For the regression, it has been positively, it has been discovered by statisticians and many mathematicians that the technique of least squares is the best fit. Least squares means minimizing the sum of the squares of the errors. And the least square functions is the one that needs to be minimized. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. So, this is a minimization problem. And there are some beautiful methods in the literature of optimization to solve such problems. But the question is, do we need such a sophisticated method to solve this least squares problem, linear least squares problem? The answer is no. Why not? Let's see. Next slide, please. It turns out the least square function is a convex function, and convex optimization is a piece of cake. In the following sense, that this type of function can be minimized just from the gradient equations involving the gradient of that n-dimensional functions. And the most beautiful thing is that every minimum solution and local minimum solution is also a global minimum. So the statisticians, they never looked into this aspect. This what they did, that, well, they said, well, there is a equation involved in the whole thing that is called normal equations, which actually comes by equating the gradient equation equal to 0, because that is one of the necessary conditions for optimization, for n-dimensional optimization. And it turns out the necessary condition for a convex optimization is same as sufficient conditions. So the bottom line is, next slide, please. The bottom line is that by equating the gradient equation equal to 0, what do we get? Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, no, oh, wait. Go back to that slide, please. So what happens that by what you end up by doing this thing is that this equation called normal equations, which is d transpose dx equal to d transpose y, given d and y, find x. This equation is called normal equations, and it turns out if d is a full rank, then d transpose d is not only singular, it is symmetric, positive, definite, so it can be inverted. So one natural way of solving this thing is to inverting the matrix d transpose d. That is very easy, and that's what statistician has been using for years. But as a numerical analyst, I don't like that, because there are some obvious numerical difficulties associated with that. The difficulty is that, next slide, please. Difficulty is that this equation, the matrix D can be highly ill-conditioned. So D transpose D will be much more ill-conditioned. So the equation cannot be, the matrix D transpose D cannot be inverted exactly, I mean inverted accurately. So there will be some problems. So there are, in mathematical literature, if you look into that, I mean in numerical linear algebra literature, there are two beautiful techniques to solve this discourse problem, the normal equation problem. One is based on the keyword decomposition, and it's called ASP decomposition. And that has been now routinely used, is being routinely used to solve this problem in numerical fiber way. And I don't have time to talk about that thing. But what I have to do, give me 5 more minutes. I have to talk a little bit about the numerical experiments that we have done on three real life examples using the software library based on Python, which is the major computer language of machine learning. Can you go to the several slides, please? The skip several, keep going, please. Going, okay. Let's keep going. We don't have time. Let's go going. Keep going, please. Just going to the experiment sections. Go ahead, please. Please go ahead. Keep going. Okay. Wait. Okay. So there are 3 numerical examples on real life numerical examples on real life problems. One was to predict the housing price in the city of Boston, and that is to predicting the number of coronavirus in the state of New York, which was a hotspot in the beginning. So another is the prediction of, not prediction, is optimize the portfolio of investment. Okay, let me talk just a little bit about these the last 2. So to predict the number of coronavirus cases in the state of New York, what we did, we took the data from New York Times from March 1 to June 14 of 2020. So there are 100 sets of data. Out of 90 was used for the training set, 10 was used for the test sets. Both, there are 2 techniques are used, linear regression and something called piecewise linear regressions. And they were applied to solve this real life problem. And the result was, keep going, please. You can see the result. Yeah, you can see the result now that the results are done on the actual data, on the actual data on the training and the test, the linear regression data, linear regression on the training and the test, and the piecewise linear regression on training and the test. So 6 sets of analysis here. And let's look next set, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. No, next slide before. So it turns out, slide before. No. Okay. It turns out, you can look into that and that graph. It turns out that the piecewise linear regression is much more appropriate than the actual linear regressions. The reason is given in that slide. You can look into that. Okay, I just a few words about the portfolio optimization. This is a problem everybody should be interested in. Well, the problem is, suppose you have certain money to be invested in the stock market. Okay, the cost, and you are given the options of several assets. Several stocks. So the question is, how are you going to optimally allocate your portfolio to those assets in such a way that certain certain expectation will be met. What are those expectations? Well, we can think of this expectation. First stage, slide before, please. Slide before. That's why I wanted to control what happened. Slide before, please. Slide before. Slide before. No, next slide, please. Okay. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. No. Okay. There are three ways to look into that. First is you want to minimize. Okay, forget about the slide. You want to minimize the risk variance. Okay. The second is you want to maximize the expected return of your assets. And third is you want to do both at the same time, minimize the risk variance and maximizing the profit, expected profit. We mathematically expect the return of the profit. This is a well-known optimization problem, and this was invented by a Nobel laureate, okay, who got the Nobel Prize because of this. He was a professor at University of California, San Diego, where he kept the Nobel Prize, and I was associated with that university for some time, as Dr. Sudha said before. So anyway, we ran the data on a hypothetical case on the stock prices of three big companies, IBM, Walmart, and Southern Electric. And we showed here the results of one, the problem was three, where the goal was to maximize the profit return and minimize the risk tolerance, risk variance. And so from the result, from the graph that we have here was our conclusion. Conclusion was that a risky investor who wants to take more risks, he can decide to put most of his return in asset number 3. Whereas a less risk investor is advised to put most of the investment in asset number 2 and the remaining asset number 1. Okay. So this is just a hypothetical case, but this can be very, very practical implementation of practical application of machine learning. Okay, just few more words. What sort of background does one need to learn machine learning? Learn the techniques of machine learning. Well, as you can see, the background needed is a good background in statistics, some good background in numerical linear algebra, and optimization. So this is a very interdisciplinary but very, very useful subject, useful area of research and study. So those young people who are just looking into doing something new, I strongly encourage you to look into the subject for further study and research. And any doubt, I'll be very happy to talk to you by email or by any other communication to answer any questions. By the way, I'm finishing a book in this area, collaborate with some students and faculty from the Center of Artificial Intelligence at IIT Kharagpur, and we're very happy to share some parts of the book as well. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and God bless you. God bless India.
Thank you, sir. It was I suppose, one of the most interesting sessions, especially because other branches of, especially engineering and also economics, I see that there's a scope for economics, as also almost even human beings, different types of human beings, the scope for understanding. And I believe we have time for one question. If someone can log in and ask one question, we'll take that. The rest, as Professor Datta said, he will address via the email. Email ID is already given there. Please, if anyone wants to ask one question, I think we have time only for one question. I suppose people are busy and saying that it was a wonderful session, as also thanking you. Okay, in fact, we found the session resounding with some of the talks that we had earlier, especially with respect to modeling the pandemic. In fact, we have had 2 sessions on a similar note, but of course they were handled differently. And we also had a session on stock market similarly, but of course it was again the role of advertisements in that session. So the understanding has deepened with respect to whatever you have presented. Okay? So
I'm so happy. I'm so happy to learn that.
Of course, we will be looking into your slides again, provided the organizers.
Yes, please do that. Please feel free to distribute the slides to anybody who is interested.
Then we'll have questions for you. I hope you'll be able to answer them. Thanks a lot, sir. I believe we have completed the scheduled time for this. So let's hope that the organizers will take it on, and thank Professor Datta for that wonderful session, as also for being with us, okay, in these times, especially because it's a solace to see that you are there when we hear about so many tragedies happening all around.
As I said, that I'll be happy to do anything possible in my humble way to promote the notable goal of the Academy of Science and Technology.
Thank you, sir. We have started
like advancing the knowledge of science and technology.
So whatever we had started earlier, we'll try to take it forward. The Center for Computing, and as you said earlier, we have started, but nothing has happened. At least this discrete.
I'll make it happen. I'll make it happen as soon as the things get clear here. I'll make a trip to India. I'll make it happen.
So thank you for the blessing, sir. Thank you for the blessing in all senses. Thanks a lot.
It's not only blessing. I'll be personally associated to get the things done, to make it happen.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Organizing, please take it on. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Biswa Nath Datha, for having delivered a very content-packed talk. We also thank Dr. Sudha Balagopalan for having chaired the session. Thanks to all participants. The inaugural session will begin at 9:30 a.m. in the same venue. We request all to remain in the session. The feedback link for this session will be shared after the inaugural session. I repeat, for the attention of the participants, the feedback link for this session will be shared after the inaugural session. The inaugural session will start at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day. Have a good conference.
Thank you, sir.
It was a pleasure meeting you all.
Thank you, sir. Are you staying on? Or have you had?
It's 11 o'clock here at night.
Okay, so please have your rest. And our regards to your wife.
I would love to stay longer, but it's past my bedtime.
Yeah, you should take your rest, and our regards to your.
Well, I can stay longer, but but I'll let you.
So please come again another day. Please come again another day. Thank you.
Oh yeah, sure, no problem.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So let me take down. So every day will be the conference will go on for 3 days.
2 days. 2 days.
2 days, sir.
Today and tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
So tomorrow at the same time, you'll start the conference at the same time tomorrow?
At 9:30, sir.
A little later.
Oh, okay.
India is still India, even if you have left.
Okay,
it.
I'll see if I can log in and get together with you. Okay.
When my daughter is presenting, you will be sleeping. Perhaps she's sleeping now.
What time is that presentation?
My daughter's presentation is at 4 o'clock in the evening today in Indian Standard Time.
4 o'clock Indian Standard Time.
Yeah, Sonia is presenting.
So that is 6 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah, she's sleeping now. Okay, she's sleeping 3 hours. Okay, so we'll meet again. Okay,
I'll catch up some other time. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Again. Have a good day, good conference, and good night for me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.